Chapter 1. The invitation. The soft hum of Sarah's computer filled the small, dimly lit apartment. Outside, the sun had set long ago, leaving the room bathed in the cold light of her laptop screen. She sat hunched over her desk, a cup of lukewarm coffee beside her, scrolling absent-mindedly through her inbox. It was late, but she wasn't tired. Lately, sleep had eluded her, slipping further out of reach with every passing night. Something about the silence of the apartment at night made her feel uneasy, as if it was waiting for something. Ding! A new email appeared at the top of her inbox. The subject line was odd: "Watch yourself. Live." Sarah stared at it for a moment. Her first instinct was to ignore it, some kind of spam, she figured, but something about it gnawed at her curiosity. Who would send something like that? With a sigh, she clicked on the email. Inside, there was no message, just a single link in blue font. No sender information, no text, nothing. Her heart quickened slightly as she hovered over the link. It was probably a prank or a virus, but some irrational part of her was intrigued. She clicked the link, and a new window opened. At first, the screen was black, but after a moment, a grainy, black and white video feed appeared. Sarah squinted at it, confused. It was her living room. She blinked, her stomach tightening. The grainy footage showed her exact living room, the couch, the coffee table, even the half-empty glass of water she'd left there earlier. The feed seemed to be coming from a low angle, like it was hidden, somewhere behind the TV. Her pulse quickened as she stared at the screen. How was this happening? Was there a hidden camera in her house? Her eyes darted to the small webcam perched on her laptop. But the camera was off. This wasn't coming from her computer. Buzz. Her phone vibrated beside her. She snatched it up, unlocking the screen. A new text message had appeared from an unknown number: "You're not alone." She felt her blood turn to ice. Chapter 2. The stalker. Sarah stood up quickly, her chair scraping the floor, and glanced nervously around the apartment. Every shadow seemed darker now, every corner filled with invisible eyes. She slowly made her way to the living room, her footsteps barely making a sound on the hardwood floor. Her breath was shallow, heart pounding. When she reached the living room, she found everything exactly as it should be. The couch was empty, the TV off, and nothing seemed out of place. She checked behind the TV, no camera. She inspected the corners of the room, even under the furniture, but there was nothing unusual. Her phone buzzed again. She jumped, gripping it tightly as if it might offer some kind of protection. Another message: "Look closer." Sarah's fingers trembled as she tapped out a response. Who was this? She waited, her eyes scanning the room nervously. The response came almost immediately: "I'm watching." Fear coiled tight in her chest, suffocating her. Was someone outside her apartment, looking in? She ran to the window, peeking through the blinds into the darkened street below. The streetlights cast long shadows, but there was no one there, just empty sidewalks and parked cars. No sign of anyone. Sarah's mind raced. She had to be imagining things. Maybe it was a sick joke, a hacker or someone playing tricks on her. She returned to her desk, intending to shut her laptop and get out of the house, but the live stream was still running. Suddenly, the angle on the screen shifted. It wasn't showing her living room anymore. Now, it was showing the kitchen, from an even lower angle, as if the camera were lying flat on the floor. Sarah's stomach lurched. It was almost as if someone was crawling. Before she could react, her phone buzzed again. This time, the message was chillingly direct: "Answer the door." Chapter 3. The knock. Just as she read the message, a sharp, loud knock echoed through the apartment. Sarah gasped, her heart leaping into her throat. She froze in place, her gaze flicking to the front door. It was a solid wooden door with a simple peephole, but right now, it felt like a thin veil separating her from whatever nightmare was lurking outside. The knock came again, louder this time, more insistent. She backed away from the door, her breathing coming in shallow gasps. "Who's there?" she called, her voice shaky. Silence. Her phone buzzed. Another message, "Let me in, Sarah." She dropped the phone, her trembling fingers unable to hold it any longer. How did they know her name? How could someone be doing this? Desperate, she grabbed the nearest thing she could find, a small kitchen knife, and crept toward the door. Her eyes darted to the peephole, her heart hammering. Slowly, cautiously, she pressed her face against the door and peered out through the tiny glass circle. The hallway outside was empty. No one was there. For a moment, she thought she could breathe again. Maybe it was all just a prank, or maybe she'd imagined it. She stepped back from the door, lowering the knife, when her phone buzzed once more. "I'm already inside." Chapter 4, The Descent. Sarah's blood ran cold. The hairs on the back of her neck stood on end, and the oppressive feeling of being watched suffocated her once more. She spun around, scanning the apartment frantically. Every shadow seemed to move, every sound amplified. But the apartment was small, there was no place to hide, no place for anyone to be. She had locked the door. She was alone, wasn't she? Her eyes landed on the attic hatch and the hallway ceiling. It was closed, as it always had been. She'd never even used the attic before, barely even remembered it was there. But now, it felt as though all the air in the apartment was being drawn toward it, as if something in the attic was breathing, waiting. She swallowed hard and took a step closer to the hatch, her body moving stiffly as if her limbs were no longer her own. Her breath was shallow, each step dragging her closer to a truth she didn't want to face. Gripping the handle of the broom, she extended it toward the ceiling and gently pushed at the attic door. It creaked open with a slow, echoing groan. Nothing. She let out a shaky breath, lowering the broom. There was nothing there. She was letting her imagination get the best of her. But just as she turned to walk away, she heard it. A faint rustling sound, coming from above. Like something moving across the floor of the attic. Her body froze, muscles locking in place. The rustling grew louder, more distinct, until it was unmistakable, the sound of footsteps. Before she could react, a pale, slender hand appeared from the darkness of the attic, gripping the edge of the hatch. Sarah's breath hitched. Another hand followed, pulling a body out of the shadows. It wasn't a person. Not exactly. Its figure was unnaturally thin, its limbs too long, too distorted. A featureless mask covered its face, gleaming white in the dim light of the hallway. Sarah stumbled backward, her legs weak with terror. She wanted to scream, but her voice was stuck in her throat. The creature began to descend from the attic with slow, deliberate movements, its masked face never turning away from her. Her phone buzzed again. The creature stopped halfway down the attic ladder, its head tilting as if listening to the sound. Sarah, hands shaking uncontrollably, picked up her phone. The message read, "Too late." Chapter 5, The Final View. The thing in the mask was closer now, its body unnervingly still as it stared at her from the hallway. Sarah knew she had no chance to run, no way to escape. She backed into the living room, clutching her phone in a white-knuckled grip. Suddenly, her phone screen flickered. The live stream came back on. But this time, the feed wasn't showing her living room. It was showing her. Standing exactly where she was now, facing the hallway, with the masked figure looming in the distance behind her. Her heart nearly stopped. The camera angle shifted again, and she realized, with growing horror, that the footage was now coming from inside the room, right behind her. She didn't have time to turn around. The last thing Sarah saw before the feed cut to static was the masked figure's reflection in the black screen of her phone, standing inches behind her, reaching out.